Folks, we have not yet had any kind of paid advertising on this podcast. That doesn't mean people don't try, but we have been approached by someone doing something very, very cool. Mitch Honstetter has a small jewelry design business called Earthen Objects Jewelry. And the good news for us? They specialize in UAP and UFO pendants. Check out the show description for a link to Earthen Objects Jewelry and pick a pendant that works for you. That's Earthen Objects Jewelry. These things are awesome.
Hi, friends. Good to have you back.
Chad.
I'm sorry. I'm good to be back. You've been here all along.
That's true.
I left you guys. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. What's been going on in your life? We haven't done a podcast since I think it was the Darcy Weir episode.
Mm-hmm.
We had a nice back-to-back of Jeremy Corbell and Darcy Weir, and then we've been quiet for a bit.
I know.
What's been happening?
I was just overwhelmed by the rock stardom right there. That's very epic, and thank you for bringing your friends in.
Dude, of course. We had great
God.
conversations.
Oh, fantastic humans, too.
Really great conversations. Afterwards, Darcy and I went to dinner. We had like a 2-hour, the conversation continued for a couple hours, and it was really, really fascinating.
It's more fascinating. Where'd you go?
We went to Bob's Big Boy.
Exactly.
Which is a diner in LA, which is a pretty popular spot.
Shout out to Big Boy.
Yep. We sat in a booth, and behind us was a plaque, ironically, of Lockheed Martin, which used to be a Burbank company.
Really?
And with what we talked about, I mean, Lockheed obviously is a huge part of our discussions, but
sure,
it was a fun time. But welcome back. Good to see you.
Thank
It's been
you.
a while.
I'm really happy to be back in LA with my homies.
You've moved your life a little bit.
Moved my life.
Moved your body, moved your life.
Yeah, back to the homeland.
Yep, back to the Pacific Northwest, we can say.
I'm a Pacific Northwest kid, and now I'm a Pacific Northwest aging adult.
That's the way to be. I'm happy for you, bud.
Thanks,
it's good
buddy.
to see you.
Hey.
Since we did a show, there has been a lot happening.
Yeah.
I don't know the best way to use our time here, but we should probably just go over some of the stuff that has happened since our last episode.
Yeah. Dan literally had to create a list because there's so many things that have happened since we've chatted. That it
was like, I feel like it was months of like not a whole lot going on in the topic, and then all of a sudden, when Lester Nare was here, did a great conversation with us last year, and he kind of said that there's something coming. End of December, early January, and he was right. That's when Matthew Brown and Jake Barber all came forward, and Harald Malmgren, which is a huge one we got to talk about.
One more recently, but mind-blowing, maybe if not the most mind-blowing testimony I've seen. It's basically a deathbed confessional from one of the most important figures in White House history.
Let's start here. Let's start with Malmgren.
I love it.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, blew me away. I wish I could have seen it multiple times because there's a lot to grasp in this interview. Harald Malmgren was just interviewed. He unfortunately just passed away shortly. It was just a couple weeks after this interview that he gave, right?
I believe he died February 13th, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
But fantastic interview about him and his entire life. It's
Jesse Michaels on American Alchemy was the show, and
props to him. So well done of an interview, the production, everything. It makes the 4 hours go by where, I mean, I was just telling you earlier, I wish my memory retention just for specifically that, watching that interview was incredible. So well done.
Not a wasted minute.
Yeah. Harold had his daughter there too, who interjected with brilliance and well-spoken etiquette and just another brain that seems to be running in the family. But something I really suggest anybody who's interested in any of these topics of whether it's, the UAP worlds, the occult, everything, listen to that guy because he was a presidential advisor that came in at the age of 27, handpicked by the JFK administration, and has become a legend working under 4 different presidencies under the most kind of harrowing times as far as these topics are concerned, I think.
let's not forget too that he was courted when he was like 12 from universities, and I believe eventually was courted by governments for his advanced thinking and his advanced theories in physics, where he was like cracking codes on physics that our scientists hadn't been able to do yet at age 12 and 13. So clearly a very brilliant man, just a different perspective, which made him a valuable asset to whoever could get his services.
Yeah.
Luckily, he stayed with the U.S. and was a part of
Thank
the
goodness.
JFK, the Johnson, Nixon, and Ford administrations as a presidential advisor. And
But he still did consulting later on too,
He did.
like through other presidencies, up through Clinton.
oh yeah,
at least.
does that? I don't know. I don't know for sure.
I could be wrong.
I
about
know he
that.
was just definitely connected to those four guys,
Mhm.
but I'm sure his knowledge and input didn't stop there. But
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of the men most responsible for avoiding a Bay of Pigs disaster and the Cuban Missile Crisis. He was front and center for all of it.
He was literally the voice of
The main
reason
guy.
in the Situation Room in his 20s, convincing our heads of state and generals to back down
Yes.
and cool the temperature in the room.
Some of the most blood-thirsty generals in history who wanted to like blow Moscow out of the water. He was like, and then what? So we shoot at Moscow. Then who do we talk to?
Yeah.
Just like, let's de-escalate.
Yeah. And that guy accomplished that in his 20s. And then from then on, my God, what a rich, long life of just covering every topic. And so grateful that he was willing to talk about all of this so candidly and openly. It's truly one of the most important interviews I've ever seen personally. And I know you kind of share the same sentiment.
Of course. And for UAPs, for JFK type stuff, and just for the sake of American history,
Yeah.
what this guy did and having the bravery to stand up in the face of military generals who
Yeah.
like just desperately want to go to war. And you're a kid looking at these like grizzled leaders and being like, this is not the way to do it.
Right.
And somehow winning the room over. And he did it. And some of the claims he makes are just absolutely astounding. Like, he talks about this test, I believe it was in the 60s, it's called like the bluegill triple prime test, which was basically, I think it was basically us testing our defenses against like a foreign nuclear weapon. So what we used to do as a government is put like a payload or maybe some kind of nuke in the sky, fly it around, and Harold would say we would get these things called tag-alongs. And just passively, everyone called these things tag-alongs, which are UFOs who were seen at basically every nuclear test, just trailing, or anything we put in the sky.
Mhm.
Like they would just come and kind of check out what they were. So during one of these tests, that we put something up, we see that these tag-alongs follow along. And then a later test, we're testing, I think, our own like anti-missile defenses. So we put our own thing in low orbit, and then we use one of our weapons to try to knock that thing out of the sky, whatever this, a potential nuke or missile could be. One of these tests, the bluegill triple prime, we shot this missile or whatever out of the sky, but we also shot possibly this craft, a UFO, a tag-along that was following along. There's video of it. They show the video in the Jesse Michaels interview on American Alchemy, and this craft falls out of this plume of smoke into the ocean, where Harold says it was recovered within a couple hours. And like that alone is an astounding statement to make.
Yeah. Coming from such a respected individual like that.
Who would have a need to know because he was part of these tests.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, taking a step back from this and, people who are just maybe listening to the story for the first time and get to see the interview is even this is somewhat under the radar, how unbelievably valuable and incredible this story is that was just told, that's available out to the public right now, that's just not getting the reach that it deserves. It's popular right now, especially in our community and whatnot, and people who are interested in the subject. But if there's one thing that deserves the front page of every newspaper in the world that is helping explain our reality right now, and it dates back that far, that just kind of verifies a lot of things that are happening in today's world, where we are seeing a lot of these UFO NHI crafts that around military bases and around nuclear facilities. The interests, or like, and not necessarily the interest, but the combination of having these crafts around nuclear facilities dates back quite a ways, and now we have like more testimony of this from somebody who was literally there, and not just that, they recovered something.
We will get into Matthew Brown as well.
Yeah.
But Matthew Brown is someone who said that if you have a nuclear facility, 100% you have had some kind of incursion of some kind of object investigating what you're doing.
Yeah.
100% of the time.
Yeah.
Within the first like year or two of having a facility, which is crazy. But Harald Malmgren talked about being called to Los Alamos in New Mexico to take a look. He had a meeting or something and was asked to went into someone's office, and on their desk they had a bunch of debris where they told Harald, like, check this out, like we recovered this from something. Basically pick it up and just see what you feel. And so Harald picked up some of this material, and he got what we've heard so many times. He got this like download of information from something. The material itself, he said, basically spoke to him. He heard a voice and was like, basically, okay, that's interesting. Put it down, and turned around and told the other guy in the room, like, the guy's like, well, what'd you feel? He goes, well, I got a message and I heard a voice. And that was basically his introduction to being read into certain programs. And it was like a test, like, touch this material. If you hear something or feel something, we can move forward. And he heard the voice and got the download, and then was basically given a lot more information. I'm like, okay, well, you're someone who's supposed to know this stuff.
Great start. We're like 8 minutes in, and here we are
talking about insane stuff. But
it all ties together again, like everything from these more historical stories that we're hearing from decades prior match so significantly to the things that we're hearing about today, and what we're uncovering with, our consciousness and all these different studies that people are doing across the board.
Yep. Not
Not just UAP related, but just human consciousness related, telepathy related. They all are connected to the same type of thing, that like consciousness is kind of like this exo type of thing from our body that we can tap into this whole world. And that's like, we're learning more about this subject through that, I feel, right now.
100%, without question.
And that kind of was the driving factor all along. And it's just so great to hear from these incredible people that is the situation, even dating back to the 40s.
100%. I mean, in that Harald interview, he touches on some of that, and he also talks about like the Knights of Malta, which I need a little bit of a crash course on. Can you tell me at all, or tell the audience that maybe in the dark like me, what exactly the Knights of Malta is and what the connection is to?
I'll do my best crude explanation of what I know, like limited of what I know. I honestly, I'm no professional on this subject at all. I got hip to them honestly through the Harald Malmgren interview.
Okay.
And I just did a little bit of background on them because he brought them up several times when trying to explain the correlation between the Vatican and the CIA, and how, like, the Vatican's history of, NHI crafts, UFOs, UAPs, and, more understanding of our reality and whatnot, and the ties to the CIA.
David Grushin made a claim in 2023 that the first actual recovered craft was in Magenta, Italy, which was
30s.
Somehow we got a heads up. The U.S. got a heads up from the Vatican.
Yeah.
That Italy had this
through like Mussolini, right?
Right. So during World, it was recovered in 33.
Mm-hmm.
World War II started in 39, and I think towards the end of the war, it sounds like that the Pope and the Vatican were concerned that Mussolini was going to get his hands on it and actually turn it into a weapon, supposedly.
Yeah.
And so the Vatican reached out to the States and said, hey, we got this UFO. You might want to come, as Grush said, scoop it up before it's basically used for bad.
Right.
And that's what happened. So the Vatican was a part of this. Yeah, talk to me about
They go back. Well, in regards to the Knights of Malta, it's like something out of an Indiana Jones movie. Honestly, it's
Da Vinci Code stuff.
It's almost like it's a not so private but private society that dates back to 1099 during the Crusades. This completely sovereign entity was formed called the Knights of Malta. I think it had a different name back then. But they didn't have a territory, but they were a sovereign nation of sorts, which allowed them to
With no real estate.
Not until I think it was like the 1500s or sometime in the 1500s where the island of Malta was taken. And there was a lot of stories between that and even Napoleon coming in and taking over. There was a lot of things, but even they lost that. And so they became sovereignless yet again. But it's this group of people that consists of historical bloodlines, dukes and duchesses, to
and it still exists to this day. It's still,
at least the last thing that I read was up until the 2020s. Within years of us of situations happening and people making moves in this community. But it's if I was to point with my limited knowledge and my brain wanting to go somewhere with all this information of who's controlling what, like who's really pulling the strings and keeping all this information hidden from us. And they call the wizard behind the curtain. I would point almost to the Knights of Malta and connections to the Vatican, the CIA. I feel like those three entities are this perfect trifecta of sharing information, keeping information private. The Knights of Malta being this sovereign entity that can hide money, can share information, and they don't abide by any other laws. Like, according to international law, they are their own sovereign entity, but they don't have any land, where does that put them? They can kind of get away with anything anywhere.
So when they were living in Malta as the Knights of Malta, they would not go by the laws of the land. They had their own.
Well, they were their own sovereign nation then. So
but they lived in Malta. But they were their own sovereign nation. But they lived in Malta, right?
I'm not super clear on everything. There seems to be a lot to read up on them, and so any of y'all listening, if you guys want to dive into a really cool rabbit hole of, again, some Indiana Jones type of shit of the secret society that really tapped into the secrets of the world, the powers that be between the Vatican, which is extraordinarily powerful and rich and influential in the world. Obviously, they have billions of members, to the connection with the CIA, the formation of the CIA, and how the founders of the CIA and the acting directors for the first couple decades were so tied in with both the Knights of Malta and the Vatican. It's a very close-knit community between all of them that shared a lot of information.
Tell me more about the connection between the CIA and the Vatican. That's very interesting.
Again, just from what I know, and there'll be other people who will speak much more clearly on this and probably with more facts, but there seems to be some genuine ties between the formation of the CIA and the Vatican. As far as, the Central Intelligence Agency is all about information and intelligence, obviously. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the massive specialties of the Vatican. And, that's pretty well documented across a lot of different subjects.
It's also fun to think about the fact that the CIA started 3 months after Roswell.
Yeah, we were just talking about that earlier.
3 months after Roswell.
Yeah.
September 47.
Do we think it's really tied in like that?
I don't know. It's fun to say yes. It's also impossible to say definitely not. Well, why wouldn't there be? If we had the Magenta craft in 33, and then we finally get our own on our own land, I can see them being we need a new division here. We can't just hide this in the Air Force all the time. We can't hide it. Department of Energy was a big part of it too, but I think we needed our own thing. So the CIA being that kind of makes a lot of sense to me.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that it seemed to be kind of sovereign in a way, as another entity from the United States, that didn't really have to abide by too much shit.
Mm-hmm.
They were, I think, renegades in their own way because of probably their connections with these other renegade societies that date back centuries.
Of course.
That really were the most powerful forces in the world. I mean, I can't think of anything more powerful. I mean, as far as followers, information, wealth, anything than the Catholic Church.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, what is really a pope right now in today's age? Like, we just got a new pope during all this too.
Yep.
And it's great. He's born in Chicago.
First
Chicago guy,
American
first
pope.
American pope.
What's up?
What up? Cool.
All reports seem to be he's pretty cool so far, right?
I guess so.
Seems to be.
I don't know, but
what,
yeah, sure.
What does the Pope do? I mean, then not a lot, right? I mean, just it's a
right. It's like a figurehead of something that is still has billions of followers.
It's a symbol. They're a symbol.
Yeah, but how much gravitas that position has to, like, it invaded every corner of the media and everybody was obsessed. Like, people are crying on TV about it. Like, I'm just like, it's a fucking dude.
It's just
born
a
in
guy.
Chicago. Especially now that he's from Chicago. Like, it's just a fucking dude.
At the end of the day, he's just a dude who went to the World Series. Like, this video of him at the World Series in 2005, I think. Like, he's just a guy.
He's just a guy.
Which I kind of like.
But he devoted his life to something cool. But again, I think it's a pretty wild pedestal. But again, that dude is now the head of something so immensely powerful.
Yeah.
I wonder if he is going to get privy to anything.
Gotta wonder.
He's
He's in his 60s? Is that right?
I don't know.
This guy?
Yeah.
I think he's like on the younger side of popes. He'll be here for a couple decades, probably.
Pope Leo the fourth. Shit. I remember seeing a V in one eye.
I don't know.
But anyway,
I'm down.
Good luck to him, and I
news.
hope that he does a lot of good. He sent out some good messages. Anyway,
yeah,
let's pull it back into the freaky shit.
I mean, let's power through some Malmgren stuff before we move. I mean, we could do we probably should have done a whole show on Malmgren, but let's not forget that he said that when asked directly, do you think that JFK was killed? JFK being killed had anything to do with UFOs? And Harald was he was like at that point like dialed into that administration. And he said, again, in a deathbed confession, he goes, not only basically do I think that it was part of it, I think it was the number one reason he was killed, which is a really holy shit thing to say from someone like him.
And let's remember again that this is a person, if I could choose anybody to ask questions to regarding that area, I can't think of anybody else.
Well respected, well trusted, had the clearances, the track record, has never had any kind of like public mix up or any kind of like accusations. He never a stumble from what we can tell.
Yeah. No, he's a fucking rock solid, epic
witness. Yeah.
American patriot. If I'm gonna call anybody
100%.
a patriot, I think that he might be the dude, especially with what he just let out.
100%. Absolutely. Yeah, it's pretty astounding, man.
Yeah, it's, again, people watching, take 4 hours, even if you have to split it up, just go watch this. There's subtitles, but I don't, was he post-stroke maybe? Because he's kind of hard to understand a little bit, but they have great subtitles.
Was it a stroke? Did he have a stroke?
That's just a wild guess.
I think it was something going on because he was clearly speaking English, but he was older and about to pass away.
Yeah. Anyway, it doesn't take from the gravitas of everything that he talked about and how unbelievable his testimony is.
Some people can see the playtime of almost 4 hours and be like, that's too much for me.
Well, the first time I sat down to watch it, I only had like 30 minutes to spare, and I was just enthralled. It was unbelievable, the things I was hearing in the first 30 minutes.
I watched it twice in 2 days. I watched it the first time and just enjoyed it, and then I got invited to go on to our friend's show, the Night Shift show on YouTube with Clint and Xander.
So awesome.
And Pavel, they've become like Rosamund on the show a few times. We did a real deep dive on Malmgren. So folks, go follow Night Shift. Go watch that episode. It was a blast. But I'm just so much shit, man. Like, there's a part where Pippa, his daughter, later on makes a quick statement about, if you're trying to see where where like the UFO stuff is hidden, look for technologies that have no on-ramp.
She was so great.
What a thing. I got goosebumps. Like,
Yeah.
look for things where, like, all of a sudden we just have, like, I don't know, fiber optics.
There you go. I knew that was coming.
Nicely done, dude.
Come on.
But stuff like that, where it's like, well, okay, how did you get from nothing to this? Or,
And something world changing.
Kevlar or whatever it is,
Right.
stuff like that. It's really, really, really fascinating. What else? Is anything else?
Wow.
Oh, Malmgren has a whole part talking about classified math and classified physics
Oh yeah.
towards the end, saying like at some point there was like possible discoveries made in science that was like taken and being like, this information is now classified. These physics, this math is now owned by the U.S. government. It can't be used in public to advance society. We will use it for, weapons and cloaks of invisibility or whatever the hell it is. That was nuts. And I wonder if that's the part where society got left behind a little bit.
Do you remember where any of that math that was classified where it originated? Like by who was doing the math, or where it could have?
I could be no, I don't know. Was
remember.
Tesla or any part of that? I actually kind of forget.
Get my memory so bad. I wish. Wish I knew.
But this guy, Malmgren was Forrest Gump, and he was part of every big thing in history from the 60s on. Just to go watch the interview. It's absolutely riveting.
Yeah. As far as somebody who just understood international relations, trade, information / intelligence,
I feel
like every president needs a Malmgren.
I was about to say, and I feel like we don't have guys like that anymore. And if we do, we don't know who they are, which is probably good. But I feel like we don't have guys like him anymore.
Yeah.
And that sucks. So let's move on, shall we?
We shall, because I was about to say something I shouldn't have.
Are you caught up? Are you caught up on the last 2 Weaponized episodes? Where you and I are filming this?
Yes.
The day before part 3 of the Matthew Brown, Immaculate Constellation Whistleblower.
Yeah.
Episode 3 on Weaponized comes out tomorrow.
Yep.
You watched the first 2?
Yes.
What are your thoughts on Matt Brown?
God, we got like another version of Malmgren in today's age that has been in the Pentagon. So again, another just brilliant, young, incredible mind that was adopted by the Pentagon kind of early on and got his access and went in there. And when you're in the Pentagon, according to him, like I wasn't familiar with like really how the Pentagon works as far as when you're an employee there and like the information you have access to and how you gain access. But he explained kind of a private internet of
JWICS.
JWICS, yes, exactly. Yeah. I know George brought that up. That's great. I didn't know the name, but it's basically like a private server / internet of the Pentagon where everybody from Pentagon officials and employees to military personnel and generals can upload information to this server that you have kind of free reign to and read through.
Which blows my mind.
Yeah. So while he's there, he just is studious, B, curious.
Inquisitive, yeah. Yep.
And would stay there late at night, kind of, stumbling into things. And this is now we come to discover he is the author of the incredibly important paper that was administered to Congress last year called Immaculate Constellation.
Yes. And he stumbled on this. It was a file on JWICS that sounds like it was mislabeled. It was labeled something else called War Games or some kind of program about war games.
So yeah, mistakes are made at every level.
Yep. Yep. Which happens. Maybe
Sure.
It shouldn't happen, but it does happen.
Yep.
And it sounds like this is what Immaculate Constellation sounds like from what he's saying, is that it's what ATIP became after the 2017 New York Times article went public. They had to rename it because now it was public, so it kind of sort of became the new catch-all for all things UFO and all things like UFO surveillance.
Yeah. So dumb down really quick, like he basically uncovered. Well, he stumbled across some of these documents,
videos, photograph, testimonies, all
Yes.
kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No. I just wanted everybody to
Yes.
understand that,
Yeah.
that during his time at the Pentagon, even though it wasn't primarily his role, he stumbled across some amazing material that included, high resolution photographs, video,
Yep.
and extended videos of things that we've seen to high resolution photos of things we haven't seen that kind of cover every end of the UFO gambit that we've ever thought about.
He talks about photos and videos of Russian ships in the Atlantic being filmed and photographed by something of ours, I assume from
Like
sea
a
level.
submarine. Yeah. It was like
something sea level.
secretively watching 3 like intelligence ships. Like they weren't like battleships. They were like,
Did they say? I don't know.
I don't know. But anyway, 3 Russian ships in the middle of nowhere in the Pacific that had a giant triangular craft hovering above them. And there's a clear as day image.
Yep. And video of another one.
And video. Oh no. Yeah. He did say there was video of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Football
field size.
And did a little bit of digging, and it sounds like they'd been watching those ships for a while. So it wasn't just like we were watching those ships for a reason. And what I can't figure out is if we were watching those ships because we knew that there was going to be something appearing above them, or if the Russian ships knew and we were just tailing them anyway. I can't figure that out yet, but there's something.
I love that we can say we knew.
Sure. Yeah. But
somebody in our crew knew.
Sure.
Or somebody that controls us knew that
something was going to happen there. But it's wild. So he tried to go up the try to bring someone's attention through the proper channels.
Mm-hmm.
And he was called into a room and asked, like, what did you discover when you started poking around? And he's like, well, on slide 1 there was this, on slide 2, and the guy's like, did you read the whole thing? And he's kind of like, well, yeah. Knowing full well that he probably shouldn't have. It's a thing called spillage, where you see stuff that you're not supposed to see.
Yeah.
And then you have to, like, if you see it, you're supposed to, like, basically turn yourself in and be like, listen, I saw some stuff I'm not supposed to see. Like, what do I do? And you kind of have to, like, sign a bunch of paperwork, and you're probably threatened and scared a little bit. But he claimed that this experience showed him firsthand, he finally knows for sure that our intelligence community and the U.S. government and probably other world governments are lying to people, that they know way more than they're letting on.
Yep.
And you have places like AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which was fronted by Sean Kirkpatrick at first. You have people like Sean Kirkpatrick.
Oh boy.
Lying to the public straight up, because Matthew Brown could see in these documents that Kirkpatrick had been briefed, that he was a part of it. He had knowledge. He even had made private comments about, like, knowing full well that this stuff is real. And then on the public facing side of it, he's like, there's nothing here.
Right.
There's no proof. And that's when Matt Brown was like, and my entire worldview was shattered, because now I know for sure that people are being lied to. And that made him scared. And that's when he knew that he was kind of in danger and had to come forward. But I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of character, and I feel like you are too. When you're watching him speak, that seems to me to be a very sincere and concerned human being.
Well, yeah, I wanted to touch on that, especially because, like, I always kind of want to draw back a little bit, because I've been hit with a few messages from friends, that aren't really up to date in this world, and like they see me on a podcast talking about this pretty deep stuff that a lot of people would call conspiracies and blah blah. This is not conspiracy shit anymore. We're talking about a subject that is so...
Well, there is a conspiracy.
Well, of course there is.
But it's
yes,
not a theory much anymore, but, like, it's not fringe, like...
Well, as far as there being UAP and
Yes.
that there being phenomenons happening in our world that we can't understand, it's done.
We're way past the
that
point of, like, is it real?
Yeah.
We
So,
know.
like, I'm just, like, wanting to kind of, like, always just back up a little bit and be like, hey, these guys we're talking about aren't just like other lunatics coming forward and giving, like, some random interview on some random podcast. We're talking about intelligence officers that had, like, the highest of clearance, that their stories are corroborated by other such individuals with just like the highest clearance that our own government can give them. And all of this, we can check back on all of this, and it's solid. I'm a natural skeptic, and like sitting right here, right now, like I want to poke holes in as much of these people as possible. I don't have anything readily available to me, like with, I didn't give as much time as I'd like to on any of them. But like, these are incredible patriots of our nation that were given access for a reason, because they're intelligent, trusted, and they come across that way too when they give these interviews, where it's not just, believable, or like it's not just like, oh, they seem honest. Like, no, this is a motherfucker that was in the Pentagon for years. We have the paper history of it. He knows how the operation works. He knows how to talk about this in the right way, with like saving his own ass, both legally and just being threatened, because scary things do happen in this world when people come forward. Whistleblowers do have reasons to be concerned. And so he came across to me as a guy that, like, another unimpeachable individual.
I agree. I think he's in more trouble than he realizes, or I'm sure he does realize. There's something he said in the second episode which really caught my ear. When after he discovers what he discovered, he starts bringing it to his higher ups in the proper channels and voicing his concerns. And at one point, he'd kind of given a lot of information, but not all of it. Mm-hmm. And he hadn't heard back from anyone he reported to. So a few weeks later, he reaches back out to the same person he had been speaking to before and said, "Hey, I still have a bunch of information to share with you guys. Would love to get together and like have a meeting and tell you more." And the guy, or the woman, I don't know who it was, but said, "Just email me like whatever else you want to say on this unofficial channel.
Right.
And just send that back to me whenever if you want to. And if you don't, cool. But if you want to talk more, just email me." But they specifically asked for him to email them on this unofficial channel, which immediately, and he said he did that. And there wasn't really a follow-up in that episode, but to me, it's like, if they're asking you to send classified information over an unofficial channel, doesn't that feel like you're just being set up to be arrested for sending classified information over an unofficial channel? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Unless you're...
Am I missing anything from that?
No. I'm just saying, like, you wouldn't get in trouble if it was in the current administration.
That's true.
You
that's
might
true.
get a promotion.
Yeah, that's true. You might end up becoming a Secretary of Defense or something. I don't know, but yeah, that struck me as weird, and I'm also surprised that he did it. So I'm very curious to see if that was a setup from the beginning or not.
Yeah, but
I'm pumped to hear what he says tomorrow. I hope to see him testify at some point. There was supposed to be a hearing next week that was canceled.
Right. Oh yeah. Oh my God. We should have written that down. That's
and people are going nuts about why that was canceled.
Do you know any reasons why?
Nope. I've had a couple inquiries and haven't really gotten any information as to why it went away.
The Knights of Malta came in with their big swords, just swinging away,
slashing away. I don't know. But I mean, just dude, there's so much stuff going on. We have Matt Brown coming forward.
Mm-hmm. Can you give me a little update on him?
Well, that's what we're just saying. I mean, the part 3 we'll learn a lot more tomorrow with his last interview.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
but other than that, I mean, I don't know if there's any plans for him to testify yet. I sure hope so. We had Eric Davis, who was in Congress last week.
Oh my God, that was crazy.
Part of a really good segment, which I haven't watched the entire thing of yet. But Eric Davis, a brilliant mind who's been working on this stuff for a very long time. I think he might be one of the people that knows. He knows as much as most people, I think. I mean, not many people know more than him, I don't believe. I could be completely wrong, but just a brilliant dude in Congress talking very matter of fact about the 4 species that he's aware of NHI. You know, the greys and the mantids and the reptilians and these Nordic, these like human-looking ones. Just matter of fact,
kind of look like humans.
Yeah, of what he's learned about.
I know.
And these are happening in Congress. And you have Hal Puthoff on Joe Rogan. You watch that one?
Yeah.
That was like a 2 or 3 hour episode. And Hal, I mean, really is like I don't think many people truly know more than Hal does.
If they do, they're literally the Knights of Malta.
He's a physicist, right? He's like just a brilliant
scientist and physicist. Yeah. My God, do we want to dive into that?
Briefly. Hal Puthoff. If you, most people listening to this probably know who he is. If you're kind of new or found us in some other channel, Hal Puthoff was a big part of the SRI, the Stanford Research Institute, study into remote viewing and ESP.
He was really good at combining science and physics with the anomalous and with the paranormal, and like really trying to find the links there. Like he was that dude that actually like took Stanford and actually got funding to do that type of stuff
and
when nobody else could.
Yep. And as far as I can tell, since the 70s, he's been like, remote viewing and what's the other term? Oh God.
Oh, I'm sorry. But
something like remote viewing. What's
telepathic abilities?
All that stuff.
Yeah.
Basically, like this is, he no longer has the he believes completely since like the 70s that this is a real thing, just based on his own research. But him being on Rogan was astounding to me.
Yeah.
Just talking about material, he's handled material, he's tested material and isotopic ratios and layering of just.
Yeah, studying recovered materials that they try to replicate that cost them $1 million to replicate a couple layers of that they could not achieve.
Yeah.
What he had in his hands.
So we just cannot do this, especially with the funds that we have. And why would we? Yeah.
And again, like, I'm sorry that my brain keeps coming back to, I don't know if it's like the natural skeptic in me or me wanting to like make sure that everybody that's watching or listening, if they're, newcomers or friends or family or whatever that aren't hip to this whole world, it just like all of this exists if like you just take even a few hours to watch one of these. Watch one of the congressional hearings that happened in our United States government recently.
Yeah.
I just like really want to legitimize it for, like the people that just like come on like, oh, here's like a couple dudes in a really cool room with a lot of cool shit talking some crazy shit. Like, we wouldn't waste our time. Like, we're two guys that have like seen and done a lot of crazy shit in our lives.
I watched Malmgren twice in 2 days.
Yeah.
8 hours of viewing.
And I think, in order to survive in the industries that we've survived in, which was kind of like the basis for us doing this show, is like, we've been in the music world. We've sat in the room with some pretty crazy people that have seen a lot of crazy shit. We can see right through a lot of silly bullshit sometimes.
I agree.
And I consider myself a very rational person. And some of the interviews that I've seen over the last couple months since we've sat down in here is earth-shattering.
It's not an understatement.
And literally, like reality-shattering, where we're finally kind of breaking through to seeing what our world really operates as, and like what's kind of hidden behind this veil that's been so well kept a secret, so purposefully for so long. And like for people to even understand that is like it's a hard stretch for people to just be like, well, why would anybody want to try to keep that secret? I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, obviously. That's one thing that Matthew Brown made very, very clear of like, why is he coming forward? And he said, look at our world, look at our country.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what we're not going to survive this way. Like, everything's going pretty poorly, and he referred to like he's coming forward because of what they have planned for us, and he's not referring to NHI. He's referring to world superpowers, and I think like a billionaire class that is soon to be probably a trillionaire class,
if not already.
Who is sort of pulling the world strings, but not from like, we're not talking politicians. We're talking people whose names we don't know and money that we can't really fathom, but people
and information and technology that we can't fathom.
Right. And I think a lot of these billionaire types, if you think about people like Elon, people like just people high up in the tech world who would love to have access to this technology, which can lead into, we'll talk about Skywatcher at some point, but could lead into Skywatcher stuff. But Jeremy, I mean, not Jeremy, Matthew Brown. I had a friend, Jeremy Brown. Matthew Brown really warning us, of course, my boy, rest in peace.
Give him a minute.
Yep. But talking about this elite billionaire class who doesn't have our best interest in mind is pretty scary. And the way he talks about it, it's like we still have time to help ourselves, but not a lot. And I personally think we're past the point of doing anything, but I could be wrong. Things feel too far gone to me.
But
help me out if you disagree.
No, I completely,
anyone in the room,
I completely agree. I'm just like trying to like put it into like very easy terms. Everybody's played Monopoly.
Not me.
You've never played the game Monopoly in your life?
No, and I've asked 3 separate people, please teach me Monopoly and please don't cheat. And each time I'm taught, these people cheat and take my money, so now I refuse to learn. But
that's exactly it.
Oh,
then you've played Monopoly, because that is literally it's literally a capitalistic society. So like we're what I would call mid to late stage capitalism, like where we're at the end of the Monopoly game where there's always one winner that takes everything and everybody else is dirt poor, and like he's got fucking boardwalk and he's gonna take all of your fucking real estate and everything. We're very close to the end of the game of Monopoly. And, like, I think that's a really good example of just how our world is working in a capitalistic society. I mean, I believe to an extent in capitalism. I'm not a communist in any fucking way. Don't try to say that I am.
Commie!
Not. Fuck that. But there has to be a cool medium, because I think all of that ties into everything, like world power. Like we're talking about these billionaires not caring about you. You know what it takes to become a billionaire, because I've known
billions of dollars.
No. What kind of person it takes.
Yeah.
And like what you have to do to become a billionaire, how big of a piece of shit you have to be.
Just a cutthroat.
You have to lack all
empathy
and morals to become a billionaire and maintain to be a billionaire. And even when you get there, keep pushing so hard that you keep wanting more and more and more. I mean, it's a fucked up type of person to be in a world that should be, semi-moralistic.
But it's also part of human nature. Humans, I think, by our biology is to like hoard food.
Not all of us.
No, but I think it's in the humans.
Sure.
We all want more.
Yeah.
Think about addictions. Think about like if people drink, you want more and more.
Yeah.
Drugs, sex, whatever it is, like we want more. Money. Most people are not like, no, I'm good on money.
But let's look at current situations with billionaires and how they got there. Some of them like come up with amazing ideas and they deserve it. Like that's a great capitalistic society, like where the best idea wins and you work your ass off and you make a ton of money. Fuck yeah.
Anything on the top of your head that reminds you of that?
Initially, well, no, actually, I don't want to use that example because he's a fucking piece of shit.
You said Tesla? What were you gonna say?
No, because he didn't come up with Tesla.
I know, but who? What were you gonna say?
Well, like the idea of a PayPal or Bill Gates with Microsoft, like somebody who revolutionized things that changed the world, better or worse or whatever, and you made a shit ton of money because everybody wanted your product or something like that. But then when you start using legal loopholes, whether or not you know that it's just gonna fuck people over just for the betterment of your company, and you're gonna run Doge and shut down like social services in order to fund the contracts that fund your companies, that type of shit, and I can be as transparent as you want about that. That dates back forever in humankind. Like you were just saying, it's like a part of human nature. And so even dating back to like the Knights of Malta and people in the Vatican, power begets power. And like you either, I would never quote a fucking Marvel Spider-Man movie, but like,
with great power, yeah.
Or like you live long enough, or Batman,
right.
you either die a hero, you live long enough to become the villain. And we're seeing that with all these types of people, but that's like, it's a common thread throughout history that's where power comes from, is just like the influence of money and power. You get information, which then compounds. And I think that once you have a secret or like have a patent on something or anything, you want to hold on to that so tight and you want all of it for yourself. Like
that's what I mean. That's human
yeah,
nature.
and I think that's like what we're seeing across all these things when it comes to this phenomena and hiding the secret, that who knows how far back it goes. But I think that might be one of the they're the hoarders of our greatest information that is,
I agree,
human nature.
And that's what scares me is I part of me feels like, you got, let's talk about Skywatcher for a minute. I know you and I are very much into what they're doing. Are you still pro Skywatcher?
Fuck yeah. I mean, as far as I know from just like my angle and seeing and what they're putting out, and I think it's amazing that there's an independent team out there researching this shit with some of the most brilliant minds that I highly respect.
Mm-hmm. I want to do a little bit more digging, but there's definitely concern in the UFO community with some people specifically about where their funding is coming from, where Skywatcher money is coming from.
Yeah. Do you want to give people like the uber quick rundown of what Skywatcher is?
Please, yeah, go for it.
Oh, Skywatcher is just a group of scientists, ex-government officials, intelligence officers that have come together to create their own independent and independently funded research group to study UAP and not just UAP, but consciousness. Like they're kind of like tackling this whole subject and researching it out in the field, literally out in the field.
Definitely UAP, UFO directed.
Yes, but they're also calling on these UAP using consciousness tactics of people who have these abilities to actually be able to
call them in
yeah, using a form of meditation. And they say they have like what they call the dog whistle, which is some term that they use, but they're able to bring in these craft every day when they're out there, and they're videotaping them and they're releasing this information. Go to YouTube and look up Skywatcher. They have 2 episodes out, which is basically
they're great.
Yeah, which is basically like they're running documentary of like what they're doing currently. They're out there currently out in the desert doing this type of stuff, researching with every mode of radar and camera and everything possible to try to document this phenomena happening, and you can see it firsthand now.
It sounds like they're using the same technology that's used within the government. I think they're using the same stuff.
Okay.
I think like a lot of the same stuff, the same methods to do this stuff, and they're showing their work. I mean, they're putting out a video like once a month, episode 1 and 2. But Jake Barber is the main guy from it.
Jake Barber, and then Gary Nolan,
of course, he's a part of it.
Incredible scientist from Stanford, who's another unimpeachable, fucking brilliant mind, who has brought us a lot of great gifts in the scientific community, and he is another convinced individual who's now donating his life and his mind to trying to understand this, and they're out there actually doing this. What we wish our government would do, these guys are doing independently. But you bring up the idea that there might be some.
Well, first of all, I want to say
nefarious crossover.
Possibly. I'm not making any accusations. I'm just thinking out loud. But the Skywatcher's initial claim that they wanted to call in a UAP and have it land, basically convince it to bring one down, not violently, but like speak to it or communicate with it and get it to land. Tell me if I'm crazy, and really, I want you to tell me. I have a feeling that they have already. I think they've already done it.
Well, see, you're an experiencer. I'm not.
Well, sort of. Sure.
You've seen things.
Yes.
And I come from like the idea, like I still have never seen anything personally. So I like try to, take everything.
We're going to get you one.
With a grain of salt. Yes. No, I want to go out with these guys. Like, I go out and I ask for this now. I'm like kind of breaking through the scared.
You're going to get it.
Barrier.
That's all you got to do. You got to do it.
But again, like, even as a skeptic and somebody who hasn't experienced this, and I admit that I have never seen anything supernatural that I know of, really. These guys are saying what we would consider, anomalies. Well, that's like the easy word for it. But it could be something biological in our world that we just don't know about yet, or It could be, whatever it might be. But this is actually happening. I'm I'm convinced, even though I haven't seen anything, so there's just been too many people of such amazing ilk that just come in with information that everything matches up. Like, okay, I believe, I'll listen to you guys. And so Skywatcher has been something that I'll watch, and I'm like, okay, you guys are actually doing this. You're showing what you're doing.
Yep.
You're more transparent than most people who claim they're transparent these days. So I dig it. But if
yeah, that's my guess. Is it that these guys did this for defense contractors before they were doing this independently?
mm-hmm.
And I think for them, in order for them to make a claim as crazy as like, hey, we're gonna call in a UFO and have it land, I feel like it's ridiculous to say that unless you know that you can do it. And the only way to know you can do it is if you've done it before. So my guess is that they've already done this for somebody else, and now they know how to do it, and they're going to do it for the public or for.
So what's the good of them like doing episodes where like they're just seeing all of these way off in the distance and not claiming it?
Let's also make it clear, the videos they've showed so far, none of those images we've seen are from the work they're currently doing. That's all older stuff before Skywatcher was even made.
Well, even like when they're explaining, so like Skywatcher even goes into detail when they're calling these things.
The classes, different classes.
There's different classes. 7?
Is that what it was? 7 or 9? 7 or 9?
I think so. Okay. Everything like from the most common is an orb, which they've seen around nuclear sites so many times, to the classic flying saucer, to triangles, to the jellyfish shape.
Yep.
That there's videos released by our government.
Didn't they say they've never seen a flying saucer? They haven't seen an actual saucer yet?
Oh, maybe. I think you're right.
I think they left saucer off the list.
Right.
I think.
So like this is like kind of like a class of UAP that NHI that maybe aren't necessarily like the
possible NHI.
Yep. Yeah. Again, like
we don't know.
Yep. And like that's another great question that I like to think about. It's like, well, is it just like another biological thing in our world that we just don't really understand yet and we can't see yet? Like every time we dive the Mariana Trench, we still discover new species. We can only see a certain spectrum of the electromagnetic spectrum. Like snakes see things that we don't see. Dogs hear things that we don't hear. Is it possible that like these things are just coming into our woodwork when like it just makes it very, I want to like make this all as practical and believable to anybody listening that like this is not just crazy conspiracy shit. Like this is shit that everybody is seeing, that we're recording not just with eyes, but like with multiple types of radar. And this is now just a fact of our reality that these things are real and they're here and they're being called in by certain individuals. We should talk about that too. Like the
Sure.
certain group of individuals that are able to call on these things.
Go for it. Let's do it.
Well, like they've just mentioned that there are certain people of whether a certain lineage or the ability, it kind of correlates with the ability to do remote viewing.
Mm-hmm.
That these people are able to call these things in through meditation, like they're out there.
It's also sort of old news, but referencing like gay and left-handed men have like a certain aptitude for making contact with these things.
Incredible.
Just why that? What is that about?
Need to throw him a bone.
Yeah, I know. It's really something.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to seeing what they do more. But yeah, questions of their funding is interesting because I know that they're headed by a guy named Alex Clokus, who he's the one who's in the Skywatcher videos, like interviewing Jake, and he's kind of like the head dude. But I don't know if all the money comes from him. But I personally don't totally care where the money comes from. But some people are very concerned as to, well, are they being funded by Northrop Grumman? Are they being funded by Lockheed? Are they being funded by Raytheon or any of these companies?
Like as if it's like all like another disinformation campaign type of thing?
No, or just like let's have this publicly facing group that's trying to do this stuff. But really, it's just so we can get the tech for ourselves and make trillions of dollars. That's a legitimate concern because we know that there's a big race for the technology. The first company or country to crack it will have world dominance right away.
Again,
There's
that brings us.
speculation now that China has already done it, and that Matthew Brown, that's one thing he talks about, is like he thinks that he's alluding to the fact that the U.S., the American people, his quote is that we've been left behind, either by other countries or that our actual government has left us, the general public of America, behind. That they have all this anti-gravity stuff, they have all these means to help us with infrastructure, help us with travel, help us with the environment, but it's being kept secret just for the sake of weapons and national security.
And money.
And
power.
And all that stuff. Now, you're not going to pry that away from people. I just don't know how you do it.
Again, that brings us
that's
right
where
back.
That's everything.
That's the circle. Follow
that's
the
why
money.
Congress is pulling their hair out the last few years, the last bunch of years, trying to figure this out. It's just, we're in wild places. We have, psychics. Uri Geller. Do you know Uri Geller?
No, but you brought him up a little bit earlier tonight.
You know who he is.
I know who he is. He's like the prominence.
The spoonbender guy, and he was Hal Potoff and Kit Green and Pat Price and that whole group of guys who are part of the remote viewing group. They know Uri very well. He's apparently one of the best psychics in the world. I'm still like, psychics are a tough one for me, even though it ties into remote viewing. The word psychic still has a big stigma for me. But Uri Geller put out a video the other day about urging President Trump not to go to the Middle East on his planned trip because he's like, I have like overwhelming feelings that there's something very bad planned for you there. There's people that are planning to hurt you there. Also, our lovely president just accepted a $400 million
it's kind
gift,
of like
a plane from
the quintessential downfall of like kind of the dumb emperor accepting a gift and there being a snake inside.
Political views aside,
it is the Trojan horse of the modern day, maybe.
Kind of. It's terrible. I mean, it's not good, but he accepted this $400 million private jet to be used as Air Force One from Qatar. Qatar. How do you say it?
Qatar,
whatever. Qatar.
Either one.
And Uri Geller saying like, don't accept this plane. It's not what you think it is. Like, what are we supposed? Like, are we supposed to believe these things? I don't know what we're supposed to do with this information.
So, what would happen if that was like a Trojan horse and like that plane, something happened, and it was the demise? What would be the repercussions of something like that?
I mean,
obliteration.
Not a whole lot of fanfare from me personally, but
Well, but like
it would be a horrible for global affairs.
Global affairs scenario. Would that just be the end of the world?
Well, it depends. I mean, the president that we have in this country is viewed differently in different places. So I think I don't think most of the world would be clamoring to go to war on our behalf, if that makes sense.
Right.
Is that a nice way to put it?
Oh,
but there's some countries that would be upset. And there's probably some people higher up in this country who'd be very upset. I don't know what it would do. I don't even want to think about what it would do.
I was just thinking about like what would our initial reaction be to something like that, like our knee-jerk reaction that would just fucking spiral out of control, or we just
it'd be very bad.
Lay waste to the Middle East in fucking 4 hours.
I don't know.
It's just horrific.
I don't know.
Everything, every potential outcome of the world seems to be at like the push of a button or not.
I mean, as of this recording, a couple of days ago, India and Pakistan got into it. And did you see what the Prime Minister of Pakistan said?
No.
He made a comment which chilled me to my core. He said, Pakistan's defense minister warns that if India threatens Pakistan's existence, no other country will be allowed to live on this planet. So we're in a point now where we have multiple nuclear nations that are beefing with each other, while other nuclear nations look on to see if they have to get involved. I mean, Iran is involved in this, and the U.S. doesn't have very good history with Iran.
No.
Both are very nuke heavy. Us, Iran, and Pakistan, India both have nukes. Russia and North Korea.
Is this when the NHI comes in and rescues us because they won't?
Well, that's the hope everyone's saying, but this is such a good. We can probably wrap up on something like this. This idea that NHI or aliens or whatever they are, like, are protecting us or care about us, is a tough one to swallow, because the atrocities and the horrible shit that's happened in this country and in this world with weapons and starvation, if they haven't stepped in now, what makes people think that they would step in? If they haven't done it by now, why would they do it now?
Because there hasn't been mass demolition yet from that. Now that they've seen like that will actually launch them. That
could be, maybe.
You know.
But from what we've seen, they haven't done anything yet, unless you believe, after the Fukushima nuclear explosion in Japan in what was it, 2011? Yeah. There was there's eyewitnesses and there's videos of craft going in and flying around that stuff, and the radioactivity in the air went down quicker than it should have. Same thing happened in Chernobyl. There's things that were around in Chernobyl that there's definitely interest in maybe things helping in those moments. As far as I know, they haven't stopped anything yet. Unless, maybe that's a big story coming soon, is that we were supposed to go to nuclear war in 1988 and we hit the button and these things came over and shut it. I mean, we don't know. Maybe that happened.
Malmgren would have said something about that.
Maybe. He would have known. Should we end with a couple listener things before we head out of here?
Oh, yeah. I'd love that. We haven't done that yet. That's awesome.
Let's quickly, can we talk about the Lue Elizondo thing real quick? This little kerfuffle.
Yes, you'll know more than I do, but yes.
So you remember earlier last year, Lue Elizondo, headed up ATIP. He testified in the last hearing. A real trooper for UFO transparency. Mm-hmm. That's the overall feeling. I think people are mostly pro Lue. Last year, he held up a picture or showed a picture of what he called a mothership that was hovering over a city. Mm-hmm. And he was just adamant about it. And it took about 14 seconds for the general public to realize that it was a chandelier reflecting in a window.
Right.
Whoops-a-daisy. And then just last week, he was at a hearing in Congress, and he made some comment about I was just given this photograph of this massive, massive disc hovering over the Midwest, and look at the size of the shadow that it's leaving on the ground, basically.
Oh boy.
Come to find out, it was an irrigation circle, one of those huge Midwest irrigation things where some of the grass is wet, some is dry, so it looks like, but it was he posted it live. He held a picture up live on a press conference, and in less than an hour, I feel like in a half hour, people found on Google Earth exactly where it was, showed the side by side of dude, it's a fucking irrigation circle. You're the guy. You're the dude who's supposed to know this stuff. So I heard that he'd been spoken to by a few people, people much higher up than just the UFO community, people that are, people whose names we know, maybe people names we don't know, pulled him aside and said, what's going on? You got to chill out a little bit. Mm-hmm. So he was on a podcast today, called the UAP podcast, and he made a statement about it. I want to play it, and then we can
awesome.
Discuss for a minute. All right, here we go.
Maybe somebody here wants to control a narrative. Let's say, forget about me, right? You find some guy or gal who's helping lead something for the betterment of for what they think is a betterment of the people. And if you are part of the institution, if it's threatening to you, then yeah, disinformation works great, because why do you use it? Well, you use it to discredit people. And it is a tool of the intelligence community to do that. We do it with our foreign adversaries all the time via propaganda, and making stories up to make someone look bad. Is that the case here? I really don't think so. The individual would have a lot to lose, because the individual has contracts with certain elements in the intelligence community and the Department of Defense and maintains a top secret security clearance, because it would be very easy to expose that. If it was deliberate, and I found out it was deliberate, then I would certainly expose that individual, because I do protect my sources very well. Everybody knows that. Even when I first came out 8 years ago, I could have thrown people under the bus, and I never did, even to defend myself. So I'm not that way. I don't think the individual that provided, I think he had good intentions. I really do. Could I be wrong? It could be. I could be. But there's no indicators there. There were no micro behaviors or neurolinguistics or anything that individual was doing that would tell me otherwise. And the way we met was really by chance. I'm not going to go into detail here, but I do not see this as a setup, to be honest with you. Could it be? Sure. And we know that these things have happened before in the past, and they're probably going to continue to happen. So we need to be aware of it. But I don't get that feeling in this particular case.
So he's referring to the person that gave him that photograph. He claimed that it was like I think he said it was a commercial pilot. But then, like, a commercial pilot would also know damn well what they're looking at. They fly over that stuff all the time, right? Right. I just like it's a little crazy. I don't think someone's messing with him. I don't think it's like people think that Lue is a disinformation agent. I don't know how I feel. Do you have a feeling one way or the other about that?
No, I didn't at first, but again, like I wouldn't put all my eggs in any basket in any of these situations ever. Just because of how big this subject is and what some people are willing to do to protect it. Nothing would ever surprise me. But again, like we're talking about a lot of these amazing people that we've talked about throughout this podcast that are, what I called unimpeachable. Like, these are people with incredible histories that we can document their entire lives. And Lue is one of those guys where, God damn it, like he's an incredible patriot of this country as far as we know. But I'm never sure about anything.
It's a good place to be. And we got a question from our listener, Chris. And Chris says, hi, my question I'd like to throw into this mix is, how much do you believe the Vatican knows, and do you believe our government keeps them informed? I believe they know everything because they have the most to lose from a global religious perspective. If it is ever proved they are and have been aware of UFOs and beings from another world, it could begin the collapse of all religions. Thoughts? It's a small question to end the show.
No, I mean, I completely agree with him on almost everything. Even the church has said, like, even if there were these things, that it wouldn't conflict with the teachings or it wouldn't disturb the Catholicism.
I believe it was the last pope that passed away that said, well, like, what would you do if aliens were here? And he goes, I would baptize them. I would offer to baptize them. Like, it wouldn't be a big deal. We would just, like, see if they wanted to be part of the church.
Right.
Which is such like that's a cool response.
But as far as like my own personal opinion about how unbelievably massive the Catholic Church is and what the Vatican is capable of and represents, I think they know more than just what's written in the King James Bible.
He asked a good question, and I hadn't thought of. Do you think the U.S. keeps the Vatican abreast of what's happening?
I think they've helped each other out ever since World War II.
You think the U.S. still kind of briefs the Vatican as to what we have going on?
Well, I think it ties into that conversation we were having about like the creation of the CIA that had so much to do with the Vatican and like their knowledge of everything. I mean,
sure, but modern day, like today,
even modern day, absolutely. I mean, the Vatican has one of like the most incredible research facilities in the cosmos on the planet.
But you think they're still being like, hey, this is what's cooking right now?
I think,
okay.
I think trillionaires like to hang out with each other.
I agree with that. And I do not think that if beings were announced, I don't think it would lead to the fall of religions. If anything, it might strengthen them in a weird way. I don't know. I don't think any religions are in danger.
I can't relate to any of them.
Maybe Scientology, but who knows? And we have one more audio question from Chris. So we'll listen to this audio question and we'll wrap it up.
Hey, Dan, question for the UFO podcast. What do you guys think would have the greatest impact on our civilization if all these situations are someday released to the public or addressed to the public by our government or whomever, that the UFOs do exist, they are real, there's life out there. Do you think the religious community would lose their minds over this, generally speaking, or would there be a bigger impact, I should say, and that's why they're so cautious? Or the secular government structure of the world would lose their minds? I think the religious aspect of it might make people a little bonkers. Interesting. Just food for thought. Anyway,
we kind of just covered it on
look forward to the podcast,
I think
man.
it's going to fuck up both sides. Like, no matter who you are, it's going to fuck up your worldview. If, like, even me, who, like, okay, so, again, I always, like, want to throw back to people who are not so well-versed on this subject, that haven't taken the time necessarily, you know, which is the majority of the world.
It's a dense topic.
It's a dense topic, and it's hard. Any topic, they say, like, you study 8 hours of any topic, you're more versed on it than 99% of the rest of the world, no matter what the topic is.
Is that true? I like
not
that
probably
saying.
to the numbers, but it's probably pretty close. We've spent a lot of time on the subject because it's the most interesting to us. I think it's the most interesting topic in the world because it talks about the nature of our reality. I think it would affect everybody in their own individual way, for sure.
Yep.
Where the religious people would probably get more religious. The secular people would probably just, like, be reaffirmed in their secular beliefs. Like, but then again, maybe not, because my viewpoints on the world and how it works has changed over what I've read and seen over the last couple of years, and, like, of what information has come out.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's also, like, a secular mindset, like, where your mind can change due to incoming evidence.
Possibly. Before we go, I want to get Dave Brown, our producer friend and our dear friend.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on religious fallout? I mean, you're
highly religious.
highly religious. No, man, you're a normal human being. You're not super religious. You're not like fuck religion. What are your thoughts on the fallout in religion? If this thing's like, okay, it's all real, it's all here. We have bodies, we have UFOs.
I mean, minor, because I feel like most people who are religious are pot committed.
Right.
It doesn't you know, no matter what, God could come down from the sky and say, I'm not real. And religious people would be like, yeah, you are.
Yeah, come on, man.
No, like, once
You're just
you're
a
into
guy.
that, I feel like you're into it. Like,
Yeah, it makes sense.
you know, you kind of, there's a lot of hurdles that you have to jump through if you're religious
Mm-hmm. And I just don't
to
see
kind of justify believing that it's fact. So even if NHI comes down or whatever, like, I don't think it's going to have that big of an effect. I understand that they might want to protect information they know.
Yeah.
To not see if that's the case.
Yep.
Because it's going to hurt recruitment, I think.
maybe,
for future
but
generations, but I think, like, people who are already deeply religious, like, they're in.
But
You're set.
How do UFOs push back? How do they push back on religious ideals? Like, what's the rub? I mean, I don't see how believing in God or Jesus.
Well, it depends on what religion you're talking about. I mean, there's a lot of people who think that the world is 2,000 years old.
That's true.
Yep.
I mean, it's there. That's a big
Well, the world,
bowl
no,
of silly shit. Yeah,
the world is 2,000 years old. Who
Are you
believes
kidding
that?
me?
Who believes that?
fundamentalist Christians.
Ken Ham.
But literally half of the United States believes that.
Wait, the world began when Jesus was born? That's what they believe?
Pretty much.
Oh.
Oh no, sorry, 10,000 years old. Sorry, not 2,000.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay. You
Sorry,
understand my
10,000 years
confusion?
old. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry.
Like, I know we're
But,
stupid, but
in the grand scheme of things,
yeah.
that's not even a millisecond.
No, we're what,
of difference.
Yeah, the world is what, 14.5 billion years old or some shit, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it does matter.
But
person
again,
to
as far as
person
we
and
know, and
religion to religion.
yeah, yeah, as long as we all keep an open mind about things, you know, I would hope that it would be a positive change of, you know, if they came down and told us whatever the public announcement looks like,
Yeah.
I would hope that it's a positive thing and that, like, we don't revolt and go nuts and everybody kill each other.
And on that note, everybody have a great weekend. No, we got to start doing these shows more often. Our intention is to do them more than once every couple months.
Yes.
And that's why this show was a bit all over the place, because we're trying to, like, literally, you left LA at a time where, like, things started really popping off.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just saying, like, so we had to cram a lot into this episode.
Yeah.
We'll start doing them a little bit more on a consistent basis, so we can kind of deep dive a thing at a time. But this is a blast to kind of just catch up, and it's crazy to list it out and put it in perspective about how much is happening. We didn't even get to the goddamn NASA whistleblower.
I know we will.
We'll get back to it, but
and we got a lot of fun friends to bring in too.
Yes, we do. You had a phone call out to someone today. We're working on some cool stuff. We have a couple people on the wish list, and again, I'll say another point of the show, we've had UFO people on, but we want to get, like, creative types and people outside of UFOs, more common, but like musicians, actors, writers, directors, people in other fields.
Left brain people.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, and get people you wouldn't maybe necessarily expect to come in here and talk about stuff as fun as UFOs and alien bodies and government conspiracies.
Woo!
So, Chad, good to see you back.
My brothers.
This has been great. Brothers from other mothers or whatever the hell.
Sure.
Good to see you guys, and we'll do another one soon.
Perfect.
All right, later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
They are all the